and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do something really chill. We're going to talk about Hunted, and I'm going to sip my tea. I got some spiced chai tea here. Very good. But I'm basically going to just say read the back of the book. If you think it sounds really interesting, I wouldn't watch this video just because it's going to have a ton of spoilers. I'm basically going to talk and go through the entire book with like my experiences while reading it. And I highly recommend you read this book if you want to. Like it was amazing read. But here it goes. And this is Hunted by Darcy Coates. So it says, her disappearance wasn't an accident. Her rescue will be a mistake. 5 days after Eileen Hirschberger went missing on a hike through the remote Ashlow Forest, her camera was discovered washed downriver, containing bizarre photos taken hours after her disappearance. But with no body and no additional clues, finding Eileen in the dark and winding woods seems next to impossible. Chris wants to believe his sister is still alive. When the police search is abandoned, he and four of his friends vow to scour the mountain range until they find Eileen and bring her home. But as the small group strays farther from the trails and the unsettling discoveries mount, they begin to realize they're not alone, and Eileen's disappearance was no accident. But by then, it's already too late. So, oh my goodness, this book. Okay, I'm just gonna start talking about it. I'm trying to organize my thoughts about this because this book was nothing like I thought it was gonna be. And in fact, partway through the book, I actually solved the ending, but I didn't realize I had solved it. So that was kind of really cool. But it starts off with this girl who like is described as being just this happily, bubbly, go-getter girl. And she goes on a hike in the woods, and then suddenly she's not heard from anymore. And the first person to notice that she's missing is actually, like, this stalker guy. I don't know. It was very weird. He was described as being, like, one of their friends, but he's only really friends with her older brother, that's the Chris guy in this. And it was really strange because I still don't understand why they really kept him around, other than the fact that they'd known him for a long time. That was really the only reason why they seemed to all be like friends, but nobody in the group really liked him because he was creepy. Like, he immediately noticed that something was wrong because she hadn't posted like photos on Facebook in a while, and he was, like I said, he was a total stalker. But he's actually the first person to go into the woods looking for Eileen. He like goes around the town first because he's convinced that it's this guy that he saw in one of her photos, even though he'd already left like this small like tourist town. So he ends up in the woods, and then the four friends go and they try to get the police to like investigate. They think they see something in her photos because the family was given a copy. They weren't given the originals. And the police explain it away with, oh, it's just, either from the printer or from you printing it. It just showed up there. It's not on any of the originals. You can't, this just isn't showing up. So the four friends decide that they're going to go in the woods and look for her. And one of the friends that goes along, she's like a psychology student, and she just believes that, hey, their friend Chris, he just needs this closure for their sister, his sister. He just needs to come to terms with her dying, and it's like, okay, we'll deal with that. So they go up into the woods without telling anybody. So all of those four friends lied to all of their parents. They said that they were going to be at each other's houses, basically, is what they said. I think one girl whose daddy's, rich and who basically, funded the entire thing without knowing, said that she was going to go to, this historical place and learn some culture or whatever. I'm not even sure. But all of them lied, so nobody knows where they're at. Nobody knows that they're even missing up in this woods. So perfect plan, right? Anyway, and then the cop that they talked to, the detective, basically the detective's, entire precinct is described as being, really run down. No one really talks to each other. It's a very toxic environment. It's just not a very good precinct. They don't have anything digitalized. They're still all in paper, which was very frustrating. Anyway, she goes back to the original photos because she's like, something's nagging her about it, of course. And it turns out when she messed with them with a video editor or whatever and did overexposure, she did see the thing that was out there, and she was a little bit freaked out. And then there was a chance she never talks to her desk mates. It's described from the very beginning that she just goes in and does her work and then leaves for the day. Literally never talks to them. But she happened to ask one of them, like, if he'd heard anything, and he mentioned the, like, missing hiker cases that he's done. And up until that point, she was the lead on all the missing persons cases, so she just assumed they were all coming to her. After going around to people in the department and asking around, she found out that tons of people had worked on missing cases, and she went into the file room, which is apparently described as this room where everyone just throws files in there. There's no filing system, and found out that they have way more cases of missing persons in the Asheville forest than they should have had at all. And then looking through them, she realized that there was a pattern, that it all happened between, like, the T7 to the T12 trails. That's when everyone who went hiking up there, and then they go missing. So she brings it up to the captain and, like, has everything on his board and everything. And he's like, well, maybe we have a serial killer. So he's like, we need to just keep it under wraps. You know, this is a huge tourist town. We'll try to solve it ourselves. We'll do a small team. So they do a small team. They even bring in one FBI lady for, like, honestly, they could have left that part out of the story and it would have been fine, because she literally just came in, went, oh yeah, you guys don't have enough evidence, and then left. So it was like, you know, why was she even included in the story? I don't know. But while all this is going on, the four friends are trying to find Eileen in the woods. And what happens to them there is absolutely insane. One of the first nights, one of them gets, like, bitten up by fire ants, but he just decides, he's like, no, I can keep going. It'll be fine. And you don't realize how bad it is. And as they're walking in the woods, they just start feeling like they can see things, like, following them. They feel like they're hearing things following them. There's stuff written, like, way far up in the trees, like, die and lost, and, like, in this really weird paint. So it's all really freaky. And they're using this string to, like, show where they went on the trail. So they've been walking their trail, unwinding the string so they can find their way back the entire time. It wasn't until they found the stalker's body that they decided to go home, but they wanted to bring him home. So they did try. They put him, like, on a stretcher, even though he was very badly decomposed. They did put him on a stretcher and were trying to bring him home. And that's when the book actually kicks it up, like, a huge notch. Because on the way back, you know, they're following the string back. And then the one, like, psychology friend who the entire time she's been, like, the survival expert, who's like, okay, we found water because of her. She had this book on plants. She, like, made sure they were extra prepared. She makes this mention. She goes, this doesn't look, like, familiar at all. Does this feel right to you guys? And as she's saying that, she's unwinding from the tree her, like, thread, and this knife comes down and just, it splits her right in the face. Because, like, when she heard the branch break, she looked up, and apparently it just cleaved her right in the face. So they managed to stop her bleeding, because the other girl, so it's 2 guys and 2 girls, and the other girl who went with them, her, like, the main guy thought that she was just, like, this vapid, like, blonde, like, oh, okay, you know, her and her jock boyfriend, you know, but, she's actually really smart and pre-med, apparently. She was going to be going into med school. So she patches her up to the best of her ability. Obviously, they can't do much. But she says she clamped, like, her, like, aorta or something like that. And I was like, I don't know how well that would do in the woods with, like, infection and everything. But they realize they have to leave the stalker's body there because she's still alive, and they can't carry both the stalker's body and her body, and he's obviously dead. So it's like, okay, let's make this decision to go back. So the 2 guys are carrying her. They're going at an excruciatingly slow pace because they have to make sure that they don't bump her too much or reopen her wound. And they're still following the string back because I guess nobody, after that, you know, everyone kind of went into shock and nobody registered her comment. And so they decide to hole up camp for a day because they're all exhausted. They realize that the one guy who got eaten up by fire ants, it was a lot worse than they thought it was. So they left him to rest with their friend on the stretcher while they went and found water, because at this point they were completely out of water, and they had to find water or else they'd die. So when they go to leave, the guy, Flint, okay, maybe I should start using their names so it's less confusing. So there's Chris, who is the girl's brother, who they're originally trying to go and find. Anna, who is the psychology student who got cleaved in the face. There's Flint, who got eaten up by fire ants. And then there's his girlfriend, Haley, who wasn't smart but is actually smart. Okay, so they leave Flint with Anna. And so Chris and Haley go to find water, but they didn't tell Flint where they were going. They literally just left him. So he wakes up severely dehydrated, his legs are like completely ravaged by fire ants, so it probably hurts a lot, and his friends are just gone. So he immediately thinks, because of course he's super dehydrated, no one told him where they were going, that they left him because he was dead weight. And that's when the creature appears and basically like scares him and tricks him into falling into this ravine where he hits his head. And so finally Haley and Flint come back because they hear a noise, and they're freaking out because their friend is like in this ravine. They manage to get him out, but he has an obvious like concussion. He's in horrible shape. He cannot walk anymore, let alone help carry their other friend. I think it's like Anna, back with them. So Chris and Haley make the decision that Haley, because she's basically like a runner, she does cardio all the time, that she will just run the length of the rope back and get to safety. You know, at that point, they said they had like a day left to like hike before they were supposed to be out of the woods. She'd get back to safety. Chris would stay behind with them. They don't talk this plan over with Flint again because he's like passed out. So Haley gets up and she starts booking it down the line. And that's when she gets to the end of the line after like hours and hours of running. And, you know, I don't know. It's said that she ran for like over an hour. Adrenaline, I guess, kicks in at that point because it's dark and everything. And she gets to the end of the rope line and that's it. Like, it's just tied up in the tree. So the creature had been going behind them, taking it off the trees, rolling it up, and rewove a way back to where they would be even more lost in the forest. And she realizes this. She's realized that, one, she's gone deeper into the forest, and two, it's just separated her from her very vulnerable friends. So she tries to run back along the rope line, and that's when she runs into it again and has to run the creature again and has to run in a different direction. So she runs, almost all night. She's freaked out. She keeps doing the flashlight on the creature to make it like, because the way that they realized Eileen was warding it off was with the camera flashes. So she's doing her flashlight on it because it does not like the light at all, she realizes. So she leaves. And she is smart because in the morning what she does is she climbs a tree. She's got a map and a compass thanks to Anna because she insisted that all of them carry them in case they got separated. She managed to pinpoint kind of where she is at based on a mountain range that she sees because the canopy is apparently like super thick, so she had to like climb up past it. So she knows the general direction of where she needs to go. So she uses her compass to guide her. On the flip side of this, the cops are thinking that they've found their suspect because there's 2 emails that they set up with like, they said that there was a crime that was committed near the town but not in the forest. That way people could report anything suspicious to them and they'd know. So they find this guy who's like ex-military, was dishonorably discharged, a total hermit, living out in the middle of nowhere. Like he's got like his back of his property straight up goes to the Ashland Forest. So they're like, okay, we have enough evidence. We're going to get a warrant and we're going to make this arrest. And they got the warrant and they get there to the guy's house and the guy shoots himself. And that's when they find the like costume, the like creature costume and boots, and a list of names of all the people who they knew of that had gone like missing, like a giant list of names, and Eileen's was on there, was like the last one. So, you know, they think it's case closed, it's whatever, and then that's when the detective finds out that she like figures it out that the group went into the forest after their sister. So she's like, hey, Captain, we have to get a search team up. We have to get helicopters, you know, so they get helicopters. Meanwhile, Haley stumbles upon this like homemade shelter with another costume in it and knives, and she hides the knives, but she didn't have enough time to leave before like the guy got there. He like came up on a motorcycle, did not have enough time to leave. She has a fight with him where she gets like bleach in his eyeballs, but he cuts her leg really badly. And then he just leaves her there to die. And he's like, I'll be back for your body later, you know, I'll dispose of you, whatever. And he leaves. But like, And this is where I was a little bit confused. He didn't like leave. He went into the woods, I'm assuming to go and terrorize her friends. But when he did that, she stole his motorbike, which I'm just thinking maybe he just didn't realize that she had the strength to like get on the bike and leave. But she makes it to town, and then it's described that the detective actually worked it out, what was going on, and she found the campsite where the kids were at. So she sent the helicopter to them, got them out. Anna unfortunately did die. Oh, and backtrack a little bit. When Haley left, so it's just Flint and Chris. Flint, who now isn't dehydrated, but he's got the concussion, so he's got the brain injury. He's got his legs are horribly infected and like peeling off and like disgusting. He gets it into his head that Chris is the one who came and murdered them. Like he somehow, because he's not thinking clearly, so he's like, he somehow killed his sister first, lured them all out to the woods, killed Anna, and Haley he killed as well, and that's why she's not there. Because like I said, they don't tell Flint anything. Poor guy. He's literally like the most loyal, like best guy there, but he literally gets told nothing throughout the entire thing. I let my tea go cold talking, but that's okay. Anyway, so he gets into his head that Chris is actually the one who's trying to kill them. And so he tries to kill Chris. Does not manage to, thankfully, though. And they get, like, those two get life flighted out. Like, Anna's body gets life flighted out. They only found pieces of Todd's body. And then the detective goes and finds Eileen. Because the person who was actually behind killing everybody was the chief of police. And she realized that on his board, there was, like, in pen, there was, like writings on his like map of the Ashlow Forest, and that's where the people died. Because what he was doing was he was scaring people off the trail and further into the woods using the messages on the trees to keep them away from the paths. And he had rigged up sensors and cameras all over that section of the woods, and he was watching them die. He was just, and when she confronts him about it, he's like, you literally have no evidence. Like, there's nothing that you can do against me. Like, and she realized she was right. She had no evidence. What was going to end up happening was he was going to force her out of the station. She was either going to have to transfer or retire. And then he was going to do that for everybody who was on their very small task force. And then nobody would know what had been done because so few people knew about it in the first place. So she fucking shoots him. She kills him. And the only two people who know this are her and Haley, because she told Haley because Haley fought with him. And she told Haley, she's like, I understand if you want to tell people, but Haley decided to keep it a secret. Obviously, like, why the fuck? Like, this guy literally murdered, like I think they said in Ashlow Forest alone, he murdered at least 60 people. And he admitted that he'd killed in other places before, but not, like, killed, because he says anyway, it was this weird, like, technical bullshit, and he was super in with, like, the DAs of the town, but yeah, she fucking murders him. And then the end scene is, they're at Anna's funeral, and Haley lost her leg, Flint's doing fine. Eileen severely dehydrated and like horribly like emaciated. She had like no muscle left. The only reason why she survived so long was because the place where she fell and got injured at running from the monster had running water, and she couldn't leave that place because she was injured. So that's the only reason why she survived. And then Chris, you know, obviously was still alive and everything. And then they went to like Anna's favorite bar afterwards. So it did have a happy ending. The twist in it was, I said that I had called it like earlier because I was talking to my cousin about it, and I was like, it just makes no sense that they didn't realize sooner that there was a serial killer. And I thought it was like a major plot hole in the book because I was like, because like he has to assign all the cases to people, so wouldn't he realize that there's an abnormally large amount of missing persons cases? And that was the entire point, was he was the one who was doing it, so of course no one else would realize. So I thought it was still fun that like some books are just so predictable, and that one, even though I had predicted it early on, I hadn't realized that I predicted it, so it was still a complete and total like at the end. So yeah, I was very happy with this book. I was very blown away. Thank you so much for watching my book rant, and have a wonderful day.